America. Better than being a Christian, fake, and your brothers are perfect. Hitler picked the wrong religion. Weak and stupid. Just look at your mother. You disgust
You were
me.
assaulted.
How many others
Why are you
have touched
lying?
you?
Your
You're a
stepmother
whore like your mother.
flirting
With him. All you can do is write stupid stories and little skank. Worthless.
Leave my house. You're a
I wish you actually cut your wrists deeper. Just choke on some pills. If you're going to sleep around, at least ask for money.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am MG Kaler on Mariah Donahue. I'm sorry that it might be a little loud. I've got an AC going and a fan going. I'm going to be talking about how I went from paganism to Catholicism. And about, now that it's 2025, it's been 5 years since I decided to change from being pagan to Christian. And then I'm doing OCIA this year, and I am going to be baptized into the Catholic Church next Easter Vigil. So my husband's already been baptized. He's already Catholic. This Easter he became in full communion with the Catholic Church. Where do I start? My dad was very anti-religion. He was very anti-religion. I remember many times growing up, he would mock Christians, and he would say that religion was for the weak, especially Christians were weak-minded, they were weak-willed, and they were pathetic. And I remember growing up with that. My grandma, my dad's mom, my grandma Reynolds, was New Age-ish. She was very hippie, she would describe herself as a Gnostic Christian. She was very hippie, very, floaty type of thing. She practiced Reiki. She was very much non-judgmental when it came to New Age ideas about Wiccans, pagans. She did have Christian friends, but she never actually believed in anything like a normal Christian would. Like I said, she saw herself more as Gnostic, where Jesus was a spirit type of situation. I don't know how to describe her view of religion very well, other than that. I want to say I was in middle school when I started doing my own research into things. I was really into the goth aesthetic as well as the lifestyle. I really loved, it's called whimsy goth now, but I just called it wanting my house and my clothes to look like something from the Pyramid Collection. And my influence of religion started to reflect that. I used to joke, and I still joke, if my house doesn't look like a forest witch lives here, it's not my house. I very much enjoy the dark cottagecore, whimsy look. I just can't do anything about it because I'm in base housing. Yay, military life. Anyways, middle school, my mom is starting to get over the divorce. She's still struggling. Me and my brother are still struggling. She has started to do oracle boards and tarot cards and looking into being a psychic. I'm gonna put up the book that I actually used to read, and for the longest time I thought I was an empath and a shaman. So I started to look into things where I could be a shaman because I loved animals and I felt a spiritual connection with animals and nature. And the empath thing, I was very sensitive, and I didn't realize that it was a trauma response to my dad being an abusive dickhead. Woo. An abusive, neglectful dickhead. Anyways, I still get very angry about this. I'm trying to keep a level head, try to keep this under a half hour because I'm struggling to keep from rambling because I'm getting emotional. Enter high school. I am now fully on the path of I want to be Wiccan. I was heavily inspired by the show Charmed, and I thought this would be, even if magic didn't work like on the TV, I wanted to have that type of power. You know, I wanted to be able to change things. I wanted to fix where I was, because starting in high school, I realized that I was not doing okay. I was starting to develop an eating disorder as well as body dysmorphia. I couldn't wear what I wanted to wear. I couldn't think the way I wanted to think. I had to be daddy's perfect girl, because if I didn't, my dad would be upset, and I was already starting to see, even if I didn't understand it, that my dad's mood and how he treated me was very manipulative and very guilt trip based. It was very conditional. I felt like his love was very conditional. At least I see it that way now that I'm an adult. I tell my dad and my grandma I want to be Wiccan, and my grandma fully supports me. She is letting me read all of her New Age books. If anybody remembers Mystic, Psychic, Sylvia Brown, my grandmother really liked her, and I read a lot of her books. So I saw, she talks about angels and God, as well as talking about having a psychic power, so that must be really good. And keep in mind, the only experience I've had with Christianity at this point is my cousin's church that I went to maybe 15 times while I was couch surfing with my mom after the divorce. I didn't really have a good firm foundation of what Christianity was or anything. I knew that Jesus Christ died on the cross for the forgiveness of sins, and that is it. That is it. I didn't know any cultural background of the Old Testament or any of the apostolic blah blah blah, this word, letters. All I knew was the bare bones: Jesus died for your sins. That was it. And I thought that was the most stupidest thing ever, because who would die for something that doesn't exist? And that's how I felt for a long time. I was a sophomore when my life started to tank. My worldview had already been shattered because of 9/11. I watched people jump out of the building so they wouldn't burn to death or be crushed by the building. I watched people die on live television and watch those towers collapse. I was in school watching the news when it happened. We were watching it live in 5th grade, and the war on terror and everything that happened afterwards, I no longer felt safe in my own country. I no longer felt that the place that my grandpa told me about existed, because my grandpa fought in the Korean War, my great grandpa fought in World War II, and so I grew up with Nazis, bad, communism, bad, America, good, because we don't have that here. And what happens is I'm dealing with Muslim extremists and jihadis, and I don't understand what it is as a kid. I'm just watching the world burn. So there's background of that. So taking my world is already burning, I have no control over what's happening, to some shit happened between sophomore and junior year of high school that I am still dealing with. Every summer until I left for the military, and I was molested by a relative. And I'm going to leave it at that. It was against my will. I did not want it. And if I did anything about it, I knew for a fact that something bad was going to happen. I'm going to leave it at that. The only control I had with my eating disorder and this new religion that I found, that I finally had power to fix things. I became a solitary witch between my sophomore and junior year. I was 15 to 16. 15 to 16 age range. I became a solitary witch. I started practicing and worshiping Hecate, the Greek goddess of death and witchcraft. And that was my identity. That was my religion for years. I finally had some control, and then I didn't. My depression got worse. I started cutting more. I started feeling like my brain and my soul was getting ripped apart. I kept having nightmares, and the more I tried to control the nightmares with spells and rituals, the worse they became, and the worse the cutting got. I was 18 when my dad kicked me out, and all I had were my art supplies, like some basic clothes, and my witchcraft books, at least some of them that I had. And I started couch surfing, just like what happened with me and my mom. After the divorce, I got kicked out of my dad's house, and I lived with my grandma Reynolds, then I lived with my grandma Rita, then I lived with my mom and her boyfriend at the time, who she's now married to, and then I left for boot camp. And in this time frame, I'm going with my friends to do our own version of ghost hunters, and I'm hearing voices, and I'm feeling things touch me, and I'm seeing things at the corner of my eye, and I can't sleep because I can see things in my mirror at night. And the more I do banishing spells, and the more that I do these spells and rituals to protect myself, the worse it got. Just like in high school, where I was trying to control the nightmares and control the abuse and control my cutting, it was getting worse. I go into boot camp, and I can't practice anything in the middle of boot camp. And for those 2 months of boot camp, I don't have nightmares. I'm like, maybe I'm just too exhausted from boot camp. And it didn't click that it's because I wasn't actively practicing anything. I leave boot camp, go to my A school. I still can't do full practicing of my religion because I'm in the barracks. I can't light candles. I can't do rituals. Then I get married to my husband, and I'm dealing with everything that happened in high school with him. And I have my first daughter. We're living in base housing, and I'm back to setting up an altar and doing my rituals and doing my tarot cards again, because I did tarot cards in the barracks and I had some nightmares, but not as bad. As soon as I started the rituals again and started actively participating in online pagan communities, specifically Tumblr and Reddit, I started having those nightmares again, and I could see things in my ears, and I could feel things touching me at night, and I could hear the whispers in the back of, like, right here, and I look, and there's nothing there. And I'm on Tumblr, enjoying myself, enjoying being a mom. I get out of the military after one contract due to some political stuff and injuries on my part. And I have friends that are a Satanist and more pagans, and I'm happy. And then I get hurt a lot. And I decided that I'm gonna leave Tumblr for a little bit. COVID-19 happened, and my entire pagan community that I had built completely shattered, and I was left by myself. I was on YouTube one day and I saw a video of Christian apologetics, and I started watching them, and it went from Protestant, mere Christianity apologetics to I'm listening to Trent Horn and Matt Fradd and all of these different Catholic and Orthodox Christians, and I'm like, this makes sense, this is what I've been missing. And I finally give up and just get rid of all my pagan stuff. I finally realized that I'm going to be Christian, and it's been 5 years since I decided that, and it's just because of the COVID-19 and the move, I finally was able to join the Catholic Church now, and I haven't had any nightmares, and I'm still dealing with some brokenness, but it's much better now. Not perfect, but much better. And so that's just the general story. If you want me to go into more detail, I will, but I just wanted to give you a basic idea of what I went through. And so if you want any questions about me being pagan, or like exactly why I chose the Catholic Church instead of Orthodoxy or Islam or something like that, just let me know and I'll make a separate video of that. But yeah, I just wanted to do this somewhat emotional video, and I'm about to cry, so I'm gonna leave. So thank you for visiting the Wizard's Cottage, and safe travels, adventures.